सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। अन्तर्यश्च बहिर्विधूततिमिरं ज्योतिर्मयं शाश्वतं स्थानं प्राप्य विराजते विनमताम् अज्ञानमुन्मूलयन्। पश्यन् विश्वमपीदमुल्लसति यो विश्वस्य पारे परः तस्मै श्रीरमणाय लोकगुरवे शोकस्य हन्त्रे नमः। तस्मै श्रीरमणाय लोकगुरवे शोकस्य हन्त्रे नमः। कर्तुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलं कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडं। कृतिमहौ दधौ पतनकारणं फलमशाश्वतं गतिनिरोधकम्। ईश्वरार्पितं नेच्छया कृतं चित्तशोधकं मुक्तिसाधकं। कायवाङ्मनः कार्यमुत्तमं पूजनं जपश्चिन्तनं क्रमात्। जगत ईषधीयुक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृद्देवपूजनम्। उत्तमस्तवादुच्चमन्दतः चित्तजं जपध्यानमुत्तमम्। आज्यधारया श्रोतसा समं सरलचिन्तनं विरलतः परम्। भेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिदा पावनीमता। भावशून्यसद्भावसुस्थितिः भावनाबलाद् भक्तिरुत्तमा। हृत्स्थले मनः स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगबोधाश्च निश्चितम्। वायुरोधनात् लीयते मनः जालपक्षिवद्रोधसाधनम्। चित्तवायवः चित्क्रियायुताः शाखयोर्द्वयी शक्तिमूलका। लयविनाशने उभयरोधने लयगतं पुनर्भवति नोऽमृतम्। प्राणबन्धनात् लीनमानसम् एकचिन्तनात् नाशमेत्यदः। नष्टमानसोत्कृष्टयोगिनः कृत्यमस्ति किं स्वस्थितिं यतः दृश्यवारितं चित्तमात्मनः चित्वदर्शनं तत्त्वदर्शनम् मानसं तु किं मार्गणे कृते नैव मानसं मार्ग आर्जवात् वृत्तयस्त्वहं वृत्तिमाश्रिताः वृत्तयो मनो विध्यहं मनः अहमयं कुतो भवति चिन्वतः ऐपतत्यहं निजविचारणम् अहमिनाशभाजहमहन्तया स्फुरति हृत्स्वयं परमपूर्णसत् इदमहं पदाभिख्यमन्वहम् अहमिलीनकेऽप्यलयसत्तया विग्रहेन्द्रियप्राणधीतमाः नाहमेकसत्तज्जडं ह्यसत् सत्त्वभासिका चित्क्ववेतरा सत्तया हि चेच्चित्तया ह्यहम् ईशजीवयोर्वेषधीभिदा सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम् वेषहानतः स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनं स्वात्मरूपतः आत्मसंस्थितिः स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्द्वयादात्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीनचित् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरम् किं स्वरूपमेत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा पूर्णचित्सुखम् बन्धमुक्त्यतीतं परं सुखं विन्दतीह जीवस्तु दैविकः अहमपेतकं निजविभानकं महदिदं तपो रमणवागियम् महदिदं तपो रमणवागियम्.
So we'll now briefly go through the entire Upadeshasara till now. This text begins with the common mistake which we all perform in life. And the mistake is we think the source of happiness is the world. And once having made this philosophy that the world is the source of happiness, we perform action to gain happiness from the world. So in the first two verses itself, Bhagavan makes it clear that action cannot give happiness. In fact, actions unintelligently performed can give only bondage. Then how can actions be turned into our benefit? Then Bhagavan points out Karma Yoga in the third verse. When actions are performed as a worship of the Lord, then those very same actions can liberate us. It can purify the mind and thus prepare the mind for the highest knowledge. Then Bhagavan went on to give the three important sadhanas for developing bhakti for God. What are the three sadhanas? Puja, japa and chintana. So in puja, body, speech and mind, they are involved. And highest puja, Bhagavan says, worshipping the Lord by serving this world, considering this world as the very manifestation of God, it is the highest puja. Then Bhagavan went on to japa, he classified them into various categories. So higher than stotram is Uchcha Japa, loud chanting of the Lord's name. Higher than Uchcha Japa is Manda Japa, whispering the Lord's name. And then higher than Manda Japa is Chittajam Japa, chanting the name of the Lord in the mind itself. Bhagwan calls it Dhyanam itself. Then Bhagwan went on to Chintana, contemplation. For that, Bhagwan uses two verses. One talks about the quality of contemplation, and the second talks about the content of contemplation. So verse number 7 speaks about the quality. So what does Bhagwan say? Better than Virala Chintanam is Sarala Chintanam. So continuous, unbroken, steady, effortless meditation is higher than the broken ones. So our meditation should be Ajya Dharaya Srotasasamam, like the flow of ghee and like the effortless flow of water in the river. This is how our contemplation should be. Then with respect to the content, Bhagwan divided this contemplation into two, Bheda Bhavana and Abheda Bhavana. You can meditate upon God considering Him as separate from you. This is Bheda Bhavana. Or you can meditate upon God considering Him as you yourself, as the very consciousness in you. Saha Aham meditation. What does Bhagwan say? Bhagwan says this Saha Aham meditation is higher, is superior, is more auspicious. And then what is the result of all this contemplation? Bhagwan uses two verses, 9 and 10. Bhava shunya sadbhava susthitihi hridsthale manaha swasthata. This is what one must achieve at the end of our sadhana. What is that? The mind residing in the heart, absolutely peaceful. The mind becoming absolutely quiet. Firm abidance in one's own self. This is supposed to be the highest goal pointed out by all paths, whether it is Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, whichever the path may be, the ultimate goal is absolute peace. Firm abidance in one's own nature. Then Bhagwan takes up the topic of pranayama, where you experience a relative quietude. So it is possible that people may misunderstand this to be the ultimate path and they may pursue throughout their life only pranayama. So Bhagwan says these kinds of techniques where you experience this quietude, these techniques can give only temporary results. If you want permanent results, mind has to be cultured, mind has to be purified. So therefore, these techniques of purification cannot be ignored, cannot be discarded. So then after having pointed out this, now Bhagwan comes to the very core of this chapter. What is the core? Manasam tukim margane krute naiva manasam marga arjava. Now after having prepared the mind, now the seeker is fit for the highest meditation. In this highest meditation, you just watch the mind. You remain as a witness. You are just aware of the mind, not participating in the mental activities. So then what happens when you are aware of the mind? Bhagwan says the moment you witness the mind disappears. There is no mind at all. This Bhagwan says the method which is straight, to the point. And then Bhagwan gives elaboration of as how to do this. Witnessing the mind. First of all, find out what is this mind. And then you find vrittayaha tu aham vrittim ashritaha vrittayaha manaha vidhi aham manaha. This mind is nothing but flow of thoughts. These thoughts can be divided into two. What are they? Aham vritti and idam vritti. I thought and this thought. All the thoughts, this thoughts, they reside in I thought. So therefore Bhagwan says, you just focus your attention upon I thought. Because all the idam vritti, this thought, resides upon I thought. So if you can destroy this I thought, all the other thoughts will automatically vanish. So yesterday we had seen what is this I thought. I thought is nothing but an understanding, a notion which we have gathered about ourselves. by our superficial analysis of ourselves and our experiences. So this way we have gathered an opinion about ourselves. This opinion about ourselves is I thought. And since it is a thought, the moment you witness this thought has to perish. The problem is we have never inquired into who am I. We have considered ourselves to be this thought alone. And since everyone else in this world is also considering the same, carrying the same notion, so therefore we never question our own identity. Now here Bhagavan is saying, question who you are. What you think yourself is nothing but a bundle of thought. It is not the reality. You are infinite, you are immortal, you are blissful self. You are God Himself. But now, because of a thought which you carry about yourself, this I thought is preventing you from knowing who you are. So therefore, how to destroy this I thought? Bhagavan says, witness it. In the fire of witnessing consciousness, any thought has to perish. Just observe this thought and this thought will perish. So what has to be done? Ahamayam kuto bhavati chinvatah aipatatyaham nijavicharanam. The moment you witness this I thought perishes. So yesterday we were seeing the qualification for doing this meditation is purity. Purer your mind, the greater the distance you see from yourself from this I thought. It is something like magnifying lens. Suppose there is a point. So when you see the point, it appears as though it is only one point. But when you use a magnifying lens, what do you see? It is a cluster of so many points. Like for example, a point on the blackboard with a chalk. From far away, it appears to be one point. But as you go near, you find that they are nothing but so many dust particles together, isn't it? In the same way, this I appears to be a mix of consciousness and the thought. But as the mind becomes more and more purified, you come to know that there is a very clear demarcation between the I thought and consciousness. And once you are able to distance between this I thought and consciousness, you are able to watch it. You are able to witness it. And the moment you witness it, this I thought perishes. And what remains is the truth. And what remains? Paramapurna Sat Svurati Hirt Swayam Aham Ahantaya. Once this I thought perishes, the real I shines forth. In fact, it was already shining, but because of the cloud of I thought, you are not able to see the sun of real I. The sun is bright and brilliant, but when the clouds are there, you don't see that brightness of the sun. In the same way, the self is ever shining, ever presenting itself, but because of the cloud of this I thought, you are not experiencing the glory of this Supreme Self. So the moment this cloud of I thought goes away, what happens? The real I shines forth in its pristine glory, in all its perfection. Now what is the proof that this is the real I? Bhagavan says, whatever is real will not go away. It remains permanently. It doesn't come and go. Abadhyatvam satyatvam. Whatever is real can never be negated, can never be denied. It will be present all the time. So then when you find that this I thought comes and goes every day. Every time when we go to sleep, the I thought goes away. We are not aware of ourselves. But where is this pure consciousness, which is the real I? It remains throughout our waking, dream and deep sleep experiences, forming the very substratum for all the three states. So therefore Bhagavan says, this alone is the ultimate reality. Now the whole subject is seen from a different angle. What is a different angle? Bhagavan says, observer cannot be observed. Observer cannot be observed. Anything that is observed cannot be the observer. So this is called as Drik Drishya Viveka. Now Bhagavan is analyzing the same thing from a different angle. What does Bhagavan say? Vigraha indriya pranadhitamaha na aham ekasat tajjadam hi asat. Observer cannot be the observed. So what all things do we observe? We observe that I have a body, vigraha. I have senses, indriya. I have these pranas, prana, dhi. I have mind and the intellect. And I have this ignorance also. Whatever is seen as an object cannot be the subject. Then what is the mistake we have done? We have identified with the object, and now the object has become the part of the subject. This is the mistake. So what is supposed to be done? Disidentify yourself from everything that is an object and remain as a pure subject. Pujya Gurudev used to give a beautiful example to make this concept clear. The example of this movie theater. So we all have this experience of seeing movie. So what happens when we see movie? As the movie unfolds, slowly we get absorbed in the movie, isn't it? And when you get absorbed in the movie, what happens? The movie happenings, the movie scenes, the movie character, the movie time, the movie space, everything starts appearing real to us. Actually, the whole thing in the movie is an illusion, but that illusion is able to affect you. How do you know that you are totally getting affected by this movie? The moods of the movie, as it changes, your mood also changes. The hero is miserable and you are miserable. The hero is happy and you are happy. Remember, the whole thing is an illusion. But that illusory thing is able to affect you. How? One mistake you have done, you have forgotten yourself and you have got identified with something which you are not. So who is the villain? Identification is the villain, isn't it? The moment you identify yourself with something, anything happening to that thing starts as though happening to you. This is the problem of identification. Nothing is happening to you, but it appears as though something is happening to you. So many people come out of the movie theater crying and weeping. What happened? Hero died in the movie. Really speaking, there is no reason to cry. The whole movie is an illusion, but even this illusion can affect your mind. How? Because of identification. Now this is the same mistake we have done in our life also. Who am I? I am Satchid Ananda Atma. But what is the mistake I have done? I have also got identified with something which I am not. And what is that which I am not? The body, the mind, the intellect, the prana, etc. And now because of identification, anything happening to the body, it appears as though it is happening to me. So the biography of the body becomes my biography. Body is born, I say I am born. Body is growing, I say I am growing. Right? Body is sick, I say I am sick. Body is old, I say I am old. Body is dying, I say I am dying. You are just an observer of this body. This fact we forget, and thus we make our life miserable. Everybody has to take birth, grow, mature, decay, die. This is the biography of the body. It is not your biography. What is your biography? You are Sat, Chit, Anand. You are unborn, undying, immortal, infinite, blissful. This is your nature. But the moment you identify with this limited BMI, you also start experiencing limitation. And now the entire effort in life is to come out of this limitation. Are you successful? No. You can never be successful because body has only a tragic biography. Any body. How much ever great a person you may be, the biography of any body, any individual is a tragedy. Death will have final laugh as far as the body is concerned. And do you want to die? No. Why is it that there is a desire to live forever? The desire is there to live forever because you are immortal. You will only desire that which is your nature. And what is your nature? Deathlessness is your nature. So naturally you will desire deathlessness. But now because you are identified with the body and the body is dying, you cannot but experience death. Actually, it is the death of the body which you are not knowing. So therefore, what is the cause of your misery? Ignorance is the cause of your misery. Ignorance of one's own self. So therefore, if I want to get rid of all misery, what should I do? Know myself. This is the whole point. So what does Bhagavan say? Vigraha, Indriya, Prana, Dhi, Tamaha, all whatever you are saying, it is not you. Na aham, I am not that. Who am I then? Ekasat. I am that one supreme truth. Then what about all the other thing, body, etc.? Tat jadam, that is inert. He asat, they are illusion, impermanent. Today it is there, tomorrow it will go away. This is called viveka. Nitya, anitya, viveka. What is real, what is unreal? Who am I? What is that which I am not? Once this understanding takes place, we will be free from all kinds of misery and limitation. Now Bhagavan is saying, this Satchit Anand, these three are not different properties of Atma, but it is one and the same. Let us chant verse number 23. Sattva bhasika chitkva vetara sattaya hi chittaya hyaham. Sattva bhasika chitkva vetara sattaya hi chittaya hyaham. Yes. Now when we say Sat Chit Anand is a nature of the self, naturally a question may come, are there different properties of the self? Like for example, a flower, it may have a fragrance, it may have color, it may have freshness. Now, as far as a flower is concerned, it is possible, they are all different properties, so it is possible that fragrance may go away, the shape may be there. Freshness may go away, or the fragrance may be there. So they are independent properties. One property can go away, another property can remain. So in the same way, Sat, existence, Chit, consciousness, Anand, bliss, are they different properties? Now here Bhagavan is saying they are not different properties. They are the nature of the self, and therefore they cannot be separated from each other. Sat itself is Chit, Chit itself is Anand. All the three exist together. It is the name of one and the same thing. So what does Bhagavan say? Sattva bhasika chit kvava itara. Is there a consciousness which is illumining existence? Is there a consciousness which is other than existence, illumining existence? To put it another way, is it possible to have another consciousness which is illumining this consciousness? Is it possible to have, now this question may come. See, you said that mind is observed by consciousness, correct? Mind is observed by consciousness. What is the guarantee that there is no another consciousness which is observing this consciousness? This can go on and on and on, isn't it? Are you getting my point? The world is seen. How do you see the world? The world is seen through the eyes. Fine. How do you know that there are eyes? You know it through the mind. So the seer of the eye is the mind. How do you know there is a mind? You are conscious of the mind. Right? Now the question is there another consciousness, consciousness number 2, which is conscious of consciousness number 1? It is possible. Bhagavan says it is not possible, because let us assume that consciousness 2 is conscious of consciousness 1. What happens? Consciousness 1 becomes an object, consciousness 2 becomes the subject. Now any object has to be jadam, inert. Yad drishyam tat jadam. Whatever is seen is inert. So if consciousness 2 is seeing consciousness 1, what does it mean? Consciousness 1 becomes inert, which is not possible, which is impossible. So therefore, there is only one consciousness. Now this consciousness is not separate from existence. So what Bhagavan is asking is there a separate consciousness which is illumining Sat? No. Sat means existence. Is there a separate consciousness which is illumining existence? Bhagavan says, no, this existence itself is consciousness. Both are one and the same. Existence cannot exist without consciousness. Consciousness cannot exist without existence. To make the whole thing simple, ask yourself, are you existing? Yes. Are you conscious? Yes. You are conscious of your existence, isn't it? Now, can you separate between consciousness and existence? To put it in another way, I am conscious of my non-existence. Can you say this? No. I am conscious of my non-existence cannot be told, because the very fact that you are conscious proves that you are existing, isn't it? Now see, consciousness and existence, they have to exist together. Are you getting the point? You cannot separate existence from consciousness. This is the whole thing. We experience existence, we experience consciousness. This consciousness itself is existence. Both are one and the same. Only two different words. So therefore Bhagavan says, Sattaya hi chit. This Sat itself is Chit. Existence itself is consciousness. Chittaya hi aham. This consciousness itself is me. So I am Sat, I am Chit. Ananda aspect will be taken later. So now the question comes, Bhagavan, you said knowing myself is the ultimate goal. Then what is this God vision? Now Bhagavan says, this God vision is nothing but the vision about myself. Knowing oneself is God vision. Let us chant 24-25. Isha jivayor veshadhibhida satsvabhavato vastu kevalam veshahanatah swatmadarshanam Isha darshanam swatmarupatah. Now comes the topic of God. Who is God? And what is my relationship with Him? Till now this God term had not come. Only in the third verse it had come. Ishwar arpitam nechaya kartam. There God was considered to be someone different. Now here the concept is clarified. What does Bhagavan say? What is the relationship between Isha and Jiva? Isha means the Lord. Jiva means the individual. Isha jivayoho veshadhi bhida. Bhagavan says, yes, there is a difference between individual Jiva and Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. There is a difference. Veshadhi, when your attention is upon the Vesha, costume, dress. With respect to the dress, with respect to the costume, with respect to the conditioning, yes, there is a difference. Jiva is different from Ishvara. But Sat Swabhavatah Vastu Kevalam. But with respect to the essence, both are one. So here comes this Mahavakya. What is a Mahavakya? Any statement where you equate Jiva with Ishvara, then that statement is called a Mahavakya. What are the Mahavakyas we know? Tat Tvam Asi. It is a Mahavakya. Aham Brahmasmi. It's a Mahavakya. So they are all Mahavakyas. Any statement where Jiva is equated with Ishvara. So now what does Bhagavan say? As far as the dress is concerned, Ishvara and Jiva both are different. Ishvara is Sarvavyapi. whereas Jiva is Alpavyapi. I hope you understand the term. Sarvavyapi means present everywhere. Jiva is Alpavyapi, limited only to this body. Ishvara is Sarvatnyaha, all-knowing, omniscient. Jiva is Alpatnyaha, he knows only little. Right? Ishvara is Sarvashaktiman, all-powerful. Jiva is Alpashaktiman, little power is there. Right? So naturally, Jiva can never be equated with Ishvara. How can you say that Jiva and Ishvara are one? So Bhagavan says, with respect to the conditioning, there is difference. But with respect to the essence, both are one. What is the essence of Ishvara? Sat Chit Anand. What is the essence of Jiva? Sat Chit Anand. Sat Swabhavataha Vastu Kevalam. To put in another words, consciousness plus BMI equal to Jiva. BMI means body, mind, intellect. Consciousness plus BMI equal to Jiva, individual. Consciousness plus Maya or Prakriti equal to Ishvara. Right? Now what is the common factor? Consciousness. Once you remove the conditioning, what is the essence? The essence is only consciousness. The best example to be taken is wave and the ocean. Is wave equal to ocean? Never. Wave is a small thing, ocean is huge, isn't it? But the essence of the wave is equal to the essence of ocean. What is the essence? Water. Right? So with respect to essence, wave equal to ocean. With respect to the size, shape, etc., wave can never be equal to ocean. So from here comes all the different philosophies. Dvaita philosophy, Advaita philosophy, Vishishta Advaita philosophy. All the philosophies are right. The only thing is which standpoint they are speaking about the truth. What does Dvaita philosophy say? God is different, individual is different, isn't it? Dvaita. God is different, I am different. So it is from which standpoint? It is from the bodily standpoint. It is right. With respect to body, I can never claim myself to be God. Right? And what is the Advaita philosophy? God and me are one. Now which is the standpoint? With respect to the essence. Are you getting the point? So therefore there is no point in fighting which philosophy is right. All philosophies are right. You have to understand from which standpoint that statement is made. There's a very famous prayer of Hanumanji. What is that? Deha buddhya tu dasoham jiva buddhya twadam shakah atma buddhya tvamevaham iti me nischalamatihi. Very famous prayer of Hanuman. What does he say? Deha buddhya tu dasaha aham. As far as the body is concerned, I am your dasa, O Lord. Jiva buddhya twadam shakaha. As a jiva, I am your part. Which is that philosophy? Vishishta Advaita philosophy. Which is the first one? Deha buddhya tu dasoham. Which philosophy? Dvaita philosophy. Jiva buddhya twadam shakaha. As a jiva, I am a part of you. This is Vishishta Advaita. Atma buddhya tvameva aham. As Atma, there is no difference between you and me. Iti me nischalamatihi. This is my firm understanding. So once this understanding is clear, then you will not fight over all these differences, superficial differences. So therefore, if I want to experience God, what am I supposed to do? The only thing you need to do is know yourself. Because your own essence is the essence of God. So what does Bhagavan say? Veshahanataha swa atma darshanam isha darshanam swa atma rupataha. How do you get isha darshanam? The vision of God. Bhagavan says, if you want to have the vision of God, have vision of yourself. Know yourself. then you will come to know yourself, and that vision of yourself itself is vision of God. And how do you get that? Vesha hanataha. Give up this vesha. Don't pay attention to the vesha. Vesha means dress, costume. This is the costume. Stop paying attention to the conditionings and start paying attention to the essence. And then you will find Isha Darshanam, Swa Atma Rupataha. You will come to know God, you will see God, you will have the vision of God as what? Swa Atma Rupataha, as your own self. You experience God as your own self, as your own very state of being. This is the point. Now Bhagavan makes it very clear. Whenever we say vision of something, it implies that there is an object and there is a subject, isn't it? There is an observer, there is an observed. Now Bhagavan makes it very clear. In this experience, there is no observer-observed difference. Let us chant verse number 26. Atma samsthitehi swatma darshanam atma nirdvayad atma nishtata atma samsthitihi swatma darshanam atma nirdvayad atma nishtata. Yes, earlier the term used was Atma darshanam, Isha darshanam. Darshanam means vision. So whenever you say vision of something, it implies that I am different and that which I am seeing is different from me. So here Bhagavan makes it very clear. No. This Atma Darshanam is not like seeing a chair or a fan or whatever. Something other than you. No. This Atma Darshanam is in the form of Atma Samsthitihi. Vision of self is abiding in the self. Atma Nishtha is Atma Darshanam. Seeing the self is being the self, not seeing it as an object separate from the subject. No. Seeing the self is being the self, knowing the self is being the self. You be, that is the way to know. Not as an object, not as something separate from you. This is the vision. Why is it so? Bhagavan says, Atma Nirdvayat, because there are no two Atmas. If there are two Atmas, fine, Atma 1 can see Atma 2. But the problem here is there is only one Atma. So how will you know the Atma? The only way to know Atma is to be the Atma. The only way to know the self is to be the self. That state of being is that vision. Now a question may come, that in Puranas etc. we see bhaktas having vision of God, isn't it? Maybe in dream or maybe in meditation or prayer or whatever, suddenly one form of God appears, blesses and goes. What about that? See, that is not the ultimate vision. Now here we are talking of the ultimate vision. In that particular case, that Bhagavan, out of compassion for the devotee, out of love for the devotee, he takes a form which the devotee wants to see. So it is the devotee's desire that Bhagavan should appear in front of me in this particular form. So therefore, to fulfill that desire of the devotee, Bhagavan takes that form. Now what is the proof that that form is not the real? It comes, it goes. Anything which comes and goes, understand it is duplicate. It is not real. Anything that comes and goes cannot be real. What is real? That which is ever there, ever present, alone is real. This is the test of reality. So therefore, that God which you find in Purana, you will always find taking that form, Shankha Chakra Gada Padma Dhari, blesses the devotee, and then what? Gone. When the mind is pure, yes, you get such visions, but we are talking of the ultimate vision of God. How you must know God? The real way of seeing God is being God. The real way of being God is being oneself, knowing one's own true self. Now this knowledge about self, Bhagavan says, this knowledge little different from the self-knowledge is little different from the worldly knowledge. What is the difference? Let us chant 27. Jnanavarjita ajnanahina che jnanamasti kim jnatumantaram. Jnanavarjita ajnanahina che jnanamasti kim jnatumantaram. Yes, this knowledge of the self, Bhagavan says, it is different from both knowledge and ignorance. It is beyond knowledge and ignorance, this knowledge of the self. Now, what do you mean knowledge of the self is beyond knowledge and ignorance? See, what all knowledge we have in this world, how does that knowledge reside in us? Isn't it true that it resides in us as a thought? Yes? What all knowledge you have, isn't it true that knowledge resides in you as a thought? So what all knowledge you have is a thought-based knowledge. Correct? Whether it is a knowledge of maths or physics or chemistry or whatever. Any worldly knowledge resides in you as a thought. It is a thought-based knowledge. Now what does Bhagavan say? This knowledge of the self is not a thought-based knowledge. In that sense, it is beyond knowledge and ignorance. How can you say that? See, I know English. I have the knowledge of English. Fine. I don't know Chinese. I am ignorant of Chinese. Right? I know English. I don't know Chinese. Now this knowledge of English is also residing in me. The ignorance of Chinese is also residing in me. But what is that knowledge because of which I am aware of my knowledge of English? What is that because of which I am aware of the ignorance of Chinese? That awareness is the real knowledge. Are you getting it? I am aware of my knowledge of English. In the light of awareness, I know my knowledge of English. In the light of awareness, I know my ignorance of Chinese. Correct? Knowing about this awareness is the real knowledge. That itself is the self-knowledge. That is what Bhagavan is saying. So now this knowledge is beyond both knowledge and ignorance. It is beyond worldly knowledge and worldly ignorance. Worldly knowledge and worldly ignorance, they remain as thought, whereas this knowledge is the very illumining principle because of which you are knowing about your knowledge or ignorance. How is it that you are able to know your ignorance? That principle because of which you are able to know your ignorance is knowledge. Are you getting it? In the light of consciousness, you are aware of your ignorance. In the light of consciousness, you are aware of knowledge. Both this knowledge and ignorance, the worldly knowledge and worldly ignorance, it is illumined by consciousness. Knowing this consciousness is self-knowledge. Jnana varjita, which is free from jnana, worldly knowledge. Ajnana hina, which is devoid of ajnana, ignorance. That is chit, it is consciousness. Once having known this consciousness, jnanamasti kim jnatumantaram. Once you have known this consciousness as yourself, what is there to know? There is nothing else to know. Because your knowledge and ignorance both reside as a ripple in consciousness. Once you have known consciousness, you have known everything. It is something like saying, once you have known mud, you have known all earthen pots. Once you have known wood, you have known all wooden furnitures. Once you have known gold, you have known all golden ornaments. In the same way, once you have known consciousness, you have known all thoughts which appears as a ripple upon this consciousness. There is nothing else to know. So now Sat over, Chit over. Now Bhagavan takes up the third one, Ananda. What does Bhagavan say? Let us chant 28. Kim swarupametyatmadarshane avyaya bhava purnachit sukham. Kim swarupametyatmadarshane avyaya bhava purnachit sukham. Yes. Bhagavan, why should I strive for self-knowledge? If this is the question you ask, why should I strive for self-knowledge? Bhagavan says, aren't you seeking happiness in life, peace in life, joy in life? Yes, the self is a very embodiment, is the very nature of joy and peace. Kim Swarupam, what is the nature? Atmadarshane, the vision of the self. What is it like? What is the nature of it? Bhagavan says, Avyaya, Abhava, Apurna, Sukham. It is of the nature of Sukham, peace, bliss, joy, fulfillment. What kind? Avyaya, imperishable. Abhava, unborn. Apurna, complete, total, perfect. You can't think of anything higher. The peace and happiness is your own nature. Now compare it with the first verse. How did it start? Here is a person who says hard work is happiness. World is the source of happiness. Correct? From there, Bhagavan corrects him. No. The source of happiness is not the world. What is the source of happiness? Your own self is the source of happiness. So therefore, instead of turning outward, instead of becoming extroverted in your pursuit for happiness, become introverted. Look within. What you are seeking is infinite happiness, imperishable happiness. That is your very nature. But who gains it? The next verse. Let us chant 29. Bandha muktyati tam param sukham vindati haji vastu daivika. Bandha muktyati tam param sukham vindati haji vastu daivika. This sukham, this peace, this joy, this happiness, it is bandha mukti atitam. It is beyond bandhana and mukti. It is beyond bondage and liberation. What do you mean bondage and liberation? What Bhagavan is saying is, this joy, this peace, it is your nature. In fact, the very concept of bondage is an illusion. You are never bound. You think you are bound, but actually you are not bound. It is only a notion. This sukham which is beyond bondage and liberation, because since bondage itself is an illusion, where is the question of liberation? You are never bound. Then only the question of liberation comes, isn't it? When the very concept of bondage is an illusion, where is the question of liberation? There's a very nice story to indicate this point. So there was a shepherd who used to take sheep for grazing into the forest. So then one day what happened? In the forest he saw one small lion cub. The cub did not have a mother. Mother had died while giving birth. So this shepherd felt pity for the cub. He took the cub and started rearing it, giving the milk and all that. So every day he used to take the sheep, and along with the sheep, this lion cub also used to go. Now, who is the role model for the lion cub? The sheep. So, whatever the sheep did, this lion cub also imitated it. And slowly, what happened? This lion cub, the lion, it grew. It grew to become a huge lion with all sheepish qualities. It used to, make sound like sheep. Bleating it is called. This lion used to bleat like a sheep and eat grass. All sheepish quality, but a huge lion. Then what happened? One day, a wild lion entered into the forest. I gave a big roar. And all the other sheep, they ran away. Now this sheepish lion, that also started running away. Now this wild lion thought, Hare, sheep running away from me, I can understand, but this lion is also running away from me. So when this wild lion saw that another lion is running away from it, so this wild lion went and chased this sheepish lion, caught hold of him, and said, why are you running away from me? Now the sheepish lion, he started behaving like a sheep, started trembling. Please don't kill me. Please don't eat me. The wild lion said, what foolishness. You are also a lion like me. Then the sheepish lion said, no, I am not a lion, I am a sheep. See, I am able to bleat. What does it mean? I am a sheep. See, I am eating grass. What does it mean? I am a sheep. And it started giving arguments. This wild lion felt that there is no point in arguing with this fool. So he caught hold of him, dragged him and took him near a pond. And then look at your face now. And now look at my face. Isn't there a similarity? Then that sheepish lion said, yes, there is a similarity. Understand that you are also a lion like me. Now come on, roar! Now this sheepish lion, for so many years it has lived as a sheep. So what came out? Only that bleating was coming out. And many rounds, and slowly, the sheepish lion was also able to roar like a lion. And after that, the sheepish lion became a true lion, and then he fearlessly wandered into the forest. This is the story. So in the same way, now did that sheepish lion ever become a sheep? No, it was only a notion in the mind, isn't it? Even when that sheepish lion thought itself to be a sheep, it was always a lion. In the same way, today we are considering ourselves to be this limited entity, a stupid individual, good for nothing, isn't it? Even though this may be your understanding about yourself, even then you remain a lion. Meaning, you are Satchit Ananda Swarupa. Whether you accept it or not, believe it or not, know it or not, you are infinite, you are immortal. There is only a notion. Now that sheepish lion, it is not that it became a sheep, it was only a notion in its mind that I am a sheep. It was only a notion. So what did the wild lion do? Wild lion did not create a lion out of a sheep. Wild lion only removed the wrong notion which it had. In the same way, Sadgurus also do the same thing. They just remove that wrong notion. Reality need not be created. The reality is already there. It has to be uncovered by removing the wrong notion. So then what does Bhagavan say here? Bandha mukti atitam param sukham. There was never a bondage in the first place. Bondage was only mental, mind-made. It is only a notion. So therefore, since bondage itself is an illusion, liberation is also an equally another illusion. When there is no bondage, where is the question of liberation? So this joy, this infinite joy, who gains it? Vindati iha jivaha tu daivikaha. Daivikaha jivaha iha vindati. Who gains it? Jivaha. Jivas, individual. What kind of individual? Daivikaha jivaha. Divine individual. What do you mean divine individual? The individual who has got divine virtues. The one who has cultivated noble virtues, such an individual becomes fit for gaining this knowledge. All great virtues, they are called as Daivi Sampat. Love, forgiveness, humility, tolerance, devotion, all those virtues, they are called as divine virtues. Bhagavan say, such a one who has got a rich amount of this virtue, such a person becomes fit to gain this knowledge. And when will he gain this knowledge? Bhagavan say, Iha Vindati. Not after death. Many of us have this wrong notion that moksha or mukti is after death. After death he became liberated. No. Bhagavan says, Iha. Even while living, you can become a liberated saint. Liberation has to be gained while living. And please keep away this wrong notion that you can give liberation to somebody else. This is another foolishness we carry. Once the person is dead, go to some holy place, Gaya, etc., and perform the Shraddha Karma, pay that Pandit heavily, and be in this wrong notion that you have given moksha to your father, mother, etc. Don't be in such foolishness. You can never give moksha to others. You can give moksha to yourself only. Moksha, mukti, liberation, etc. is something which you have to gain it by your own hard work, by your own intelligent living. Just by paying amount to all these pandits, don't think you can give liberation to your near and dear ones. If that is the case, then money becomes the highest, the most important thing in this world, isn't it? You can purchase even moksha also then. What greater foolishness then? Why to study all the scriptures? It becomes a waste of time. So have this understanding clearly. Don't expect that your son or daughter will give moksha to you after death. It is something which you have to earn. Intelligent living, right living, noble living, study of the scriptures, meditation, contemplation, and thus you come to know yourself, then that is liberation. Bandha muktyatitam param sukham vindati iha jivaha tu daivikaha. So then what is the sadhana to be performed? What is the greatest tapas? Now comes the last verse. Bhagavan says, this is the ultimate tapas. What is that ultimate tapas? Let us chant. Ahamapetakam nija vibhanakam mahadidam tapo ramanavagiyam. Ahamapetakam nija vibhanakam mahadidam tapo ramanavagiyam. Mahad idam tapaha. This is the greatest tapas. What is the greatest tapas? Now, whenever we hear this tapas, etc., we get scared. With the kind of tapas we see in this world, it is all torturing the body. Now, here Bhagavan says, real tapas is what? It constitutes of two things, two aspects. What are they? Aham apetakam, first one, second one, nija vibhanakam. Aham apetakam, that sadhana which will make your false I fall. Aham apetakam, nija vibhanakam, and that which will help you discover your real self. These two things must happen. The ego must fall, the real self should shine forth. If this is happening in your sadhana, understand you are doing the greatest tapas. The ego must drop, and the real self should shine forth. If this is happening, then that is mahat tapas, greatest tapas. Your sadhana is in the right track. So after doing lot of spiritual sadhana, etc., are you finding that you are becoming more and more humble person, simple person, sweet person? Then good. There is joy, there is peace, there is contentment, there is mastery over the mind. Do you find these changes in you as you progress in sadhana? Then very good, you are on the right track. Some people look for siddhis. Am I able to predict the past, present, future? Am I able to read others' mind? Am I able to walk in the air, etc.? All those things are not the sure signs of spiritual progress. In fact, these siddhis can mislead you many times. Because in the process what happens? The moment you get some siddhi, what happens? Instead of ahamapetakam, the ego rises. Then you would want to become a guru with lot of followers. Any siddhi is a distraction. Please keep this in mind. Siddhis will come as you do sadhana, as a mind is able to concentrate. Mind develops this ability to concentrate, and once the mind is able to concentrate, you can attain any siddhi of this world. But the siddhis can many times be distractive. So a true seeker is not after siddhis. He sees whether all noble virtues are increasing in me or not. Devotion is increasing in me or not. Dispassion is increasing in me or not. Peace of mind is increasing or not. These are the signs of true spiritual progress. Many times what happens is spiritual sadhana itself can become a big obstacle. You may find people, I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. They beat their own drum, And then cold water bath. Okay, only once I take food. I don't wear slippers. And you know where I lie down? I lie down on the floor. I have no pillow, bed, etc. No. I do this many malas. What is happening in the process? No doubt he is doing all the sadhana, but in the process, he is becoming more and more arrogant. This is one of the greatest dangers in spirituality, the holier than thou attitude. I am a greater devotee. I am a more humble devotee, a more pure devotee. If such things are there, understand, instead of evolving, you are devolving. So this word is very important. Ahamapetakam. As you progress in your knowledge, your sadhana, etc., ego must necessarily fall. You should become a more and more humble person. Ahamapetakam Nija vibhanakam mahad idam tapaha. This is the greatest tapas. Ramana vak iyam. This is the word of Ramana. What does it mean? It means I am telling it from my own experience. Whatever I have told, it is from my own experience. You can hold me responsible. So thus, this text comes to an end. So you will find that all aspects have been covered, right? What are the places where we commit mistake? How to proceed in sadhana? What are the lower levels? What are the higher levels? What are the obstacles you will find en route? How to overcome the obstacle? What is the ultimate goal to be reached? Everything in just 30 verses. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kasyid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.